Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Evening Jumps. My name doesn't come up on the screen anymore, and it just like totally ruins everything that I've built up over these years. Like I really feel like I've built up a lot over these years and how I start this and just a nice little rhythm and everything. And it's just so terribly thrown off with this new system. I do like the new system overall, though. I'm very curious to know how you guys who watch the show live feel about it, but I do like this. But anyway, welcome to the Evening Jones. If you're watching at theeveningjones.com, please log in. Use your Twitter profile, your Facebook profile, whatever kind of profile you got, go ahead and use it. Once you do that, you can participate in our chat room. You can also send in your questions. I'm trying to think if anything like especially interesting happened to me this week. I live in Miami, so like generally that happens, like something just comes up. But I think I had a fairly like uneventful type week in that regard. I honestly do. I'm also not going to lie to you right now. We are recording this show at 9 o'clock Eastern time. If I'm not mistaken, sometime in this hour, Usain Bolt gonna be out here running that 200, and I'm not saying that the Evening Jones is gonna stop for Usain Bolt running the 200, but let's just say that like right now in my ear is the volume from the ad from the Olympic stream because it's got to be done. I've had a very, very, very interesting week dealing with things related to Usain Bolt. Now, I cannot talk about sports on this program, therefore I will not talk about sports on this program. What I will do, however, is tell you how fascinated I am by how the larger society seems to believe that it is the job of Black Olympic swimmers to stop Black people from drowning. Right, like I actually did not realize until very recently how horrible the stats were on Black people and drowning relative to the rest of the population. Latin people are drowning also. I was very aware of the like segregation of pools and all the stuff that comes from that. That being said, right, like Lil Mama wins the gold medal, right, and so she wins the gold medal. And look, everybody glad she won the gold medal. She from America and she Black. Like everybody got a little something to choose from. They pick, decide how they want to do it. That's what's up. But I hear people like it. They're like, yeah, this is great. Now maybe we could do something about this drowning rate of Black kids. I'm like, damn, if you actually cared about that, where the hell you been? Right? You had the ability to do something about this. I just find that very, 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 very interesting. These like situations where like a systemic level of racism has caused a problem, and one Black person overcomes in one form or another, and suddenly it's like, cool, you do it, now go show the rest of them. Yeah. So anyway, I've had a very interesting time in dealing with the Olympics, and I've come to understand that there is certainly a racialized portion in people's rooting interest in the Olympics that I had a hunch about, but has just really been like drilled home to me with some of the crazy things that people are saying. By the way, we are at the point of this podcast as we're doing this where it appears that they are about to start the second semifinal of the 200, and that's the one that Bolt is in. So there's going to be a point where the guys are going to be in the block, and then they're going to shoot a gun, and then they're going to run. In fact, here's what I think we're just going to do. Like right now, I'm just kind of going to chat and just rap with you. Because I imagine that those of you who are watching this live are also watching Bolt as I am doing this. So, I mean, what better way for us to kind of like experience all of this is just to watch Bolt together. Now, I am watching on the stream, not on the television. So I imagine that means I'm a little bit behind. So I'm not really going to be able to like fully see what y'all talk about in that chat room. In fact, now the more that I think about this, my plan for us to do this together is a little bit haphazard. It's not nearly as good as I thought it was. Either way it goes, I got to watch this 200. I guess basically that's all I'm telling you. You know, I work till 7 o'clock. I get here 9 o'clock. I'm here trying to entertain y'all. You know, I don't even charge you. You know what I'm saying? So like on this particular evening, by the way, why is this taking so long? Like these dudes just standing here by the block the whole time. They out here already, right? Get all these other jokers off the track and keep it moving. We got podcasts to do, baby. Here we go. Hey, I didn't know they had black people in Bahrain. Oh, that's right. I'm not really talking to y'all right now, so I can turn the volume back up on this. Oh my God. Why is he just so much faster than everybody else? The dude just galloped through a 1979. That dude, hold up, man. 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 That Canadian dude running as hard as he can to catch Bolt at the end, and they're gonna go over there and say something to him. Man, you better shut up and just hope that you don't get blown out the next time. Anyway, let us move on to your questions. Is Drake immune from taking L's? You know, I don't even know if so what we find another reference say from Drake, because it's like I don't even know from week to week like what the L is that we're saying that Drake should have caught. I do feel like though Drake is in this very interesting position as things stand. And here's what the interesting position is that Drake stands in. There are just so many things to say about Drake. And all of those things to say about Drake are so abundantly obvious, right? So obvious. There's no confusion. Like there are just these overwhelming elements of whackness to Drake. It's in spite of how good he actually is. There's just these overwhelming elements of whackness to him. The problem is, since we know of all this whackness, it's nothing to point out the whackness. It doesn't make you anybody if you point out the whackness. Therefore, his whackness in this bizarre way is like a shield. You know what I mean? Like, it is legitimately like a shield that protects him from us saying how wacky he is. I just don't get it. Like everything that we used to think was important about being a rapper, an aesthetic concept, none of it matters. None of it matters anymore. So I don't know if I've said this on here, but part of what I've generally argued about, like as time goes on with these movements, because the reality is, it's about time for us to come up with something that's post hip hop. Like it is kind of whack that I don't think there's ever been there has yet to be a real significant post hip hop movement, right? Like cats really shouldn't still be rapping. It's like when these dudes out here singing and rapping, I have less of a beef with it at this point, just because it's about time for something new, right? Like the style of things should have flipped up by now. And for whatever reason, it hasn't. But anyway, as hip hop starts, and then it's a movement, right? Like this burgeoning cultural revolution that's going on. And as that's happening, the form is kind of being defined. And so hip hop itself, in a lot of ways, was an answer, a response, or we could even argue a refutation of everything that which was already established. So like the idea of like singing and rapping and stuff like that wasn't really hitting after a certain point because hip hop was there to not be singing. You see what I mean? Like the point of it was to not be singing. But we're so far past the point of hip hop being like a movement or anything related to resistance. It's not that. It is like the ultimate establishment art form at this point. So, with it being an establishment art form, cats ain't gonna respect it on an essential level that are of a certain age because they have no concept of a time where like the notion of hip hop being in the pop music sphere is rare. They don't have that. And since they don't have that, there's not going to be this ascription to all the tenets that were very important to people who were there as this started and as people were kind of trying to protect it from being everything else. Because the whole point of it was for it to not be those things. Enter a cat like Drake. Nothing that we were led to believe matters anymore. Like none of it does. None of it matters. And it's this dude. I'll say it again. There is and has been room for cats like Drake in the game. The idea that he is the dude in the game is just insane. Absolutely insane. Appreciate the question. Let me see what else we got here. Eminem is considered to be the greatest of all time according to album sales. How much of this stems from the fact that he's white? How much of this stems from his ability as a rapper? I would say 90% of it stems from the fact that he's white. 90%. And you know why I'd say 90% of it stems from the fact that he's white? Let me see if I can pull this up. My man Stereo makes this point, and he's absolutely correct. I just want to make sure I get the timing of it. Okay? So I am going right now, as we speak, to a post at musictimes.com of the best-selling hip-hop albums ever. All right? Oh, this better not be no... Okay. Yeah, now we can keep doing this. All right. So, number one on single discs, right? So not a double disc album, but a single disc album. Number one on that is the Eminem Show. All right. What is this ridiculous ad that this is pulled up? Number one on that's the Eminem Show. The best-selling rap album of the 1990s, at least for a time, was Vanilla Ice's To the Extreme. The bestseller rap album of the 1980s was the Beastie Boys' License to Ill. You see what I'm saying? So the bestseller album of the 80s, of the 90s, and of the 2000s, all by white people. Every single one of them by a white person. Now, it is worth noting, License to Ill is one of the greatest albums ever made. The Eminem Show is not especially good, but the Marshall Mathers LP, I think, is pretty good, although it's a highs and lows album. The Marshall Mathers LP sold more than the Eminem Show. There we go. The Marshall Mathers LP is good, but it's not like, it ain't that. Okay? So you see what I'm saying here? That's what the bestseller rap albums of the decades were. Stereo made that point first. There we go. I am back. I apologize. Some dude named OJ said I should lick my lips. Bring a girl in here and we can do that. Anyway, so yes, best-selling rap albums in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, all by white rappers. Albums of varying levels of quality, by the way. White has a lot to do with it. And it's not like the Eminem records are like really pop friendly, right? Like it's not like you could just have him burn it up to top 40 on the chart necessarily. Also, like Eminem's turning into albums where they're like, okay, dude, now could you please record us a single? We would really appreciate it if you would give us a single. I was under the impression that you would, like to sell some records because we can't play this crazy shit on the radio. And the dude sell 10 million copies. He's dope though. Don't get it twisted. Appreciate the question. Let me see what else we got here. Wow, guys, not a great set of questions. On your radio show, you advise people to not get married young. Can you further explain? Well, here's my question for you. Are you like 15 years old? And I don't mean that to be like rude to you. I'm like dead serious when I ask you that question. Are you 15 years old? Because I feel like anybody over 15 years old is like, what part of this do you need explained to you? Right? Like, think about this for a second. Outside of getting married, what decision will a like 19 or 20-year-old make that is like for life? Hold on one second. All right, I'm back. So yeah, like I was saying, how many decisions is anybody 18, 19, 20 years old making that is a forever decision, right? A forever decision. What forever decision is a 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, hell, 25-year-old truly qualified to make? Which one is it, right? So I would say to you, given that the decision that you're talking about is a decision for forever, why you got to be in such a hurry to go into forever? And so my man Matt here says going to college, that's a pretty big decision. What the hell about going to college? Do you sign up to go to college for the rest of your life? What are you talking about? Like, are you hearing me? The rest of your life. The rest. It's not a very good idea. It's not a very good idea. Matt says, do you get married for the rest of your life? That's the point. Lance, get him up out. Get him up out. Hey man, let me do this like this. My man Fred Baptiste, he in the chat room. He in Louisiana. My man say he want to come on, talk about what's going on. At least I think that's what my man wanted. Trying to figure this out. We haven't done a video question yet on this particular platform, so I don't exactly know like how it works. But I'm trying. There we go.
What's up, bro?
What's going on, man? What's happening?
Bruh, the crib is totally messed up, bruh. Um, I got my in-laws are flooded out in Baton Rouge. Damn near three quarters to percent of Baton Rouge is underwater. Denver Springs is, in fact, Livingston Parish is about 80% underwater. 12 people have died so far, and I keep seeing people talk about Nate Parker, and I don't give a damn about Nate Parker right now. So, that's how it is, man. But I see that Emmy sparkling in the back. I gotta give me one, bro. I might have to.
It's wild though. I feel like this one ain't really got the coverage like one would expect. Cause I wasn't up on it till my uncle.
Hello?
You know? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Yeah, this ain't working.
Both.
This ain't working.
Yeah, but like it's like a
I don't
whole.
have to cut my man off, but I feel like we are like technically not making this happen. Lance, can you get us back to the one screen? I don't know what to do. Sorry about that, bro. But this is not going properly. Sorry. But no, it's an interesting one to me because like my uncle hit me from Baton Rouge to let me know what was going on down that way. And it was a text, like four texts in a row, so I was salty about it. And then I looked down and I was like, damn, what do you mean flooding? Like I had no idea. Now, granted, I don't spend a whole lot of time so connected on all these things, but I feel like this has been pretty catastrophic and hasn't been covered in a way that I would think for, a natural disaster of this magnitude. So, by the way, if anybody knows like a good way that I can donate something, let me know because I never know what the best way is on these sorts of things. But if you can let me know, let me know. Appreciate that, man. Stay strong, Fred. Although it's tricky now because I want to answer this Nate Parker question. He said he don't care about Nate Parker, but we just going to have to do this anyway. Um, it's a sexual assault case against Nate Parker surfacing before the release of Birth of a Nation. Coincidence, something more sinister, or even justified? All right, so for those who do not know, Nate Parker directed this Nat Turner movie called Birth of a Nation. The movie itself is apparently incredible. I have seen a trailer for it, and that's it. But pretty much anybody I know who has seen it has said that the film is incredible, and my mind is kind of blown by the idea that they're gonna put a Nat Turner movie in theaters, right? Because see, a Nat Turner movie. Here's the thing about a Nat Turner movie. The only way that you could really have the Nat Turner movie and not view Nat Turner as a hero is by somehow excusing or rationalizing slavery, which becomes very difficult to do. Therefore, Nat Turner then becomes hero, but that is everything in Nat Turner is like everything that's not supposed to be hero. You understand what I'm saying? At least for a lot of people. So I have been fascinated and very curious, not just about seeing this movie, but how it was going to be received and like how it was going to be received by the majority, how it was going to be received by black people, like all kinds of stuff. I was very curious. Now, here's the thing. While Nate Parker was in college, he caught a charge for sexual assault. He and a friend of his. The friend of his was convicted and given 6 months. Nate Parker was acquitted. And the reason that he wound up being acquitted is he was able to establish that he had a previous sexual relationship with the woman who was the victim in this case. But the question is whether or not Nate Parker and his buddy had sex with her when she was not conscious. And it is in court paperwork that, that is what they did. They had sex with her when she was not conscious. We're talking about something nearly 20 years ago, though, right? Like, that's one thing to say. This is something from nearly 20 years ago. And I think the question for each person individually is how important is that detail that this was nearly 20 years ago? Like, how important is that, right? Nate, by the way, Parker's already gotten like a $17 million deal to get this movie in theaters. But anyway, The success of this movie is going to be dependent in large part on Black people showing out to go see this movie. Like, that's going to be a big thing of it. A significant proportion of that group called Black people to go see this movie is Black women. Black women have now, along with the rest of us, been made aware of the fact that, I mean, regardless of whether it was criminal, Nate Parker seems to have done something pretty messed up. No way around that. He seems to have done something pretty messed up. It's hard to get people to go pay their $12 or whatever the movies cost these days to go see your film without them. They don't necessarily have to feel good about you, but they can't feel bad about you. And it's hard to feel good about a dude who seems like he got away with committing a sexual assault. And when he's asked about it, he's on some that was in the past. Now, to be fair to him, if you came in my face talk about something that happened 17 years ago, there's a good chance my initial reaction might be, why you bringing up old stuff? That might be it, right? So basically, he is being put in a position to publicly relitigate this part of his life that I'm sure he would like to move on from. Now, you can there's a different argument to be had about whether he should be able to move on from it. But I think it is objectively true that the man in that position doesn't want to keep talking about this. So he's going to try to shake it off. But people feel like you got to own it on something like that. Now, the question I've had with this is, how much owning is the public truly allowed to demand of people in these situations? So after this is done, like, how much repenting do you have to do for strangers? The answer when you're trying to sell a movie is pretty much however much repenting they ask for. That's what it is, right? Because you try to sell this movie. You gonna have to come out here and own it. You're not gonna be able to shake it off as I'm just gonna ain't no keep on pushing in the internet era, man. Dr. Dre had to go back and deal with something that he did 20 years ago. Dr. Dre, we let Dr. Dre get away with all the bitches and all the hoes for decades. And we made him go deal with something he did 20 years ago. You, Nate Parker, are damn sure gonna have to deal with it. Now, here's the thing, though. The idea that this is being put out as something sinister, I think, is a bit preposterous. The reason that I think that that's a bit preposterous is this information has been publicly available for a long time. I was reading something today that was saying that this case, you could have found out about this case on his wiki page, like before this Nat Turner movie really became a thing. Like, this has been out there. The difference is the dude has made a movie that is as critically acclaimed in this stage as any movie that I can remember, right? Like, he decided to do that. I mean, he doesn't decide necessarily. Like, now he's in this place. And once you're in this place of publicity, people go ask these kind of questions like that. So when you didn't know who he was, nobody had any questions. Now that you know who he is, people have questions. Like, do I think that this is an effort to keep that Nat Turner movie out of the studio, out of the theaters? No, I do not. I honestly do not believe that. Partially because you can't keep it out at this point. It's become too big a thing. Like, even if it doesn't get this major release or whatever it is, it's going to wind up being available in a way where you can't get rid of it. You can't. Like, this ain't, to me, an effort to take a black man down or an effort to shroud history. Somebody put lots of millions of dollars in his hand to make this movie. Let me explain something to you. If there was going to be some conspiracy to keep this out of theaters, it never would have gotten this far. Never would have gotten this far. But I do think it's going to go into theaters. I do think that they have time to get this right. And I think that ultimately people are going to wind up going to see the movie. Now, another detail I forgot to mention. The other dude that was involved in that case I was telling you about, oh, by the way, he worked very closely with Nate Parker on this Nat Turner movie. Like, it's mad awkward. It's mad awkward, but it's a step short of like R. Kelly awkward, where R. Kelly awkward is you are aware of all these terrible things that R. Kelly did, and now R. Kelly does music that you have reason to believe is about the terrible stuff that he does. You see what I mean? Like, that's a level of uncomfortable that absolutely stops people from dealing with R. Kelly's music. There will be some people who don't go see Birth of a Nation as a matter of principle. I think most people, if he answers some things fairly forthrightly, most people will say it was 17 years ago. And if he can own it at least enough for them, they'll wind up going to see the movie. Part of why I think they'll wind up going to see the movie is, right or wrong, the desire to support the brother who is doing the Nat Turner movie is normally going to be higher than the desire to stand with some other woman in the name of principle. A woman who, by the way, killed herself. Appreciate the question. Let's see what we got. Zeppelin, Marley, or Bowie? Who is your 70s artist? Here's my question. What the hell is Zeppelin doing there? What is Zeppelin doing here? Hey, look. I want to be clear about something. I like Zeppelin. I think Zeppelin's dope. But there was this other guy who made music in the 1970s. Maybe you've heard of him. I don't know if you have, but his name was Stevie Wonder. And Stevie Wonder, we're throwing way ahead of Zeppelin. Way ahead of Zeppelin. Because here's the thing. For the 1970s, Stevie doesn't have a brick. Not only does Stevie not have a brick, Stevie basically has nothing but classics in the 1970s. Like, really, I'm pulling them up to make sure I get them all. I don't want there to be no confusion about this, okay? Actually, March 1970. No, it's a live album, so that don't count. Here we go. Signed, Sealed, Delivered. Classic album. Where I'm Coming From. Classic album. Music of My Mind. Classic album. Talking Book. Classic album. Inner Visions. Classic album. Guess what? All of those are between 1970 and 1973. Fulfilling His First Finale, classic. Songs in the Key of Life, classic. The Secret Life of Plants, better than we remembered it being. But basically, all the way through, classic after classic after classic after classic after classic. Zeppelin, give you a couple missteps. Marley doesn't give you a misstep, but none of them, they're not all classics. Bowie is kind of the sheer volume and breadth of the whole thing. Right, it's just all over the place, everything that you got from Bowie. But nah, man. Nah, man. It's Stevie, Marley, Bowie, and then we put everybody else. Zeppelin, sorry. Close but no cigar. Do you believe that black police officers have an implicit bias against other black people they police, i.e. Milwaukee? Let me ask you a question. I mean, why do people believe that black folks would somehow be immune to adopting some of the same racist ideology as the white people around them? Right? Like, I feel like people who ask this question about anybody, like, this society has an implicit bias against black people. And this includes black people, right? I mean, you get a whole lot of, you know how black folks are when you hanging around black people, right? Now, I don't always like to talk about this in public because there's a whole segment of white folks that like to jump up and be like, well, if that's how y'all treat each other, why should we treat you any different? So it's really funny because white folks want us to be like them at every turn and then all of a sudden use us as the excuse as to why they're like that. No. That's not how that sort of thing works. But of course, there's going to be black people that see things like that, right? Sometimes it's going to be cops. You know what I mean? Right? Sometimes it's going to be cops. Sometimes it's going to be a dude on the street. Sometimes it's going to be a dude that's hiring. Like, that's what it is. There are black people who believe the same stuff about black people that everybody else does. And it's borderline impossible for them not to. Right? It's borderline impossible for them not to, because they are overwhelmed and inundated with the same images that everybody else is. Now, in the situation with police, you become part of what people like consider to be a fraternity, and you can draw some conclusions based upon actions about like what the general ethos is of said fraternity. And once you make the decision that you're going to be part of that fraternity, why would you be surprised that the black dude in the white fraternity talks bad about black people? As an example, right? Like in that, take that example. Would you be surprised? And if you would, why? So not every black cop is feeling that way about black folks, but people generally have these feelings about black people. They do. Appreciate the question. Let me see what we got here. Bob Dylan has a bad rep as being a bad vocalist. How do I explain to folks that he can sing probably better than they ever will? So this is an interesting thing because it can be difficult to get people into Dylan because they do not like Dylan's voice. Now, there is a difference between not liking Bob Dylan's voice and saying that Bob Dylan can't sing. Now, by like some standard put up a pitch pipe, something like that, Bob Dylan cannot sing. That being said, I might be able to make the same argument about Al Green, but it doesn't matter because Al Green sells it. Now, the thing about Al Green is Al Green's voice is just so damn smooth and just gets to the simplistic, essential nature of all these emotions that how well Al Green can and can't, quote unquote, sing does not matter. It's somewhat of a similar thing with Dylan. The thing about Dylan is this. Dylan sells the feeling behind every song that he sings, every single one. So even if you don't think that Bob Dylan is a great singer or you don't love the sound of his voice, when you listen to Dylan, you know exactly what the feeling is that he's trying to sell. Now, this dude Nazir in the chat room says Dylan's lyrics are what get him over. That's not true. The lyrics are a big part of what gets him over, but those lyrics are fueled, they are powered by the emotional resonance in Bob Dylan's singing. So like you go listen to Blood on the Tracks and stuff like that. So like listen to Tangled Up in Blue, You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go, stuff like that. You listen to those records and you're like, okay, I can't do like this is not great quote unquote singing. Like I'm not gonna ask Bob Dylan to sing the national anthem. I'm not necessarily gonna ask Bob Dylan to sing at my funeral, but the emotions behind those songs, right there. You know exactly what it is that he's selling. Exactly what it is he's selling. And so I saw a line once in a book I read about Van Morrison. I'm sure I've cited this on here before, but they say the job of the singer is to bridge the gap between the singer and the song. Like the singer connects, damn, I hate it when I get this wrong. Right, okay. The singer bridges the gap between the songwriter and the song. The space in between those. That's what the singer does. And so Bob Dylan, the singer, is able to connect Bob Dylan, the songwriter, with the song that you're hearing. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, my man says like Louis Armstrong, for example, it's a similar thing. You know where Louis Armstrong is coming from on all those songs. Mary J. Blige, she's strong with that. Appreciate the question. Let me see what else we got here. Sorry about this. It ain't that easy to go through all these questions. Wow, one of you really cares a lot about Led Zeppelin. Too much medicine in the candy for the nightly show, or was the candy just not good enough? Yeah, so the nightly show got canceled. I'm a little disappointed because I had a stand-in invitation to be on the nightly show anytime I was in New York. And every time I would be in New York, they wouldn't be shooting for one reason or another. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I don't really have a great answer for like why it is that the show got canceled. It didn't pick up viewers. Like the viewership numbers were simply not high enough. Like that one getting canceled did really seem to be part of some like high level conspiracy. They just didn't seem to have the numbers on it. But I don't have the great answer for you as to why it is that people did not watch it. I do think it's fair to ask the question as to whether or not they've extended the Jon Stewart era brand of The Daily Show as far as they can. You understand what I'm saying? Like, how much farther are you going to go off The Daily Show? I don't know. So maybe that's part of it. But I wish everybody involved in that the best. Good folks. Appreciate the question. I think I'm going to take me one more because I'm a little tired. If a young black male came to you for advice on life, what would be the most important issue that you would stress to him? To ask questions better than this. And I don't mean to like shame a man who asked this question, but the reason I say that is like I went to the journalist conference not too long ago. Basically, I get a lot of emails from people, and a lot of people come up to me when they meet me, and they're just like asking for, I was just wondering if you got any advice for a brother trying to make it. And I'm like, you know how big the world is? You know what I mean? Like people can't give you this one thing. There is no this one thing that you need to get figured out about life. There's no one. That's not how this goes. Like it's so many different things, but it ain't never gonna be this one. It never will. And I think that people really are under this impression that it can be one thing. And it's not. Like all of this is just a tapestry of a million different things that go on. But I would get advice about life. Tell me the most important thing. No, I can't. And I just don't think a lot of young people realize that. Like nobody's got this one key that's going to answer for it. You pick it up bit by bit, like a little bit here, a little bit there. And then after a while, maybe you'll be like, yo, the most important thing I figured out was, but I've been picking up so many different little bits over time. They ain't one to point to. Never has been, never will be. But all right. Long day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Evening Jones. We try to do this thing once a week. My man Lance Gilliam handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you. Remember, subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to the iTunes Store. Subscribe at Stitcher Radio. You can also subscribe at SoundCloud. I will see you guys next week. Take it easy.